Hey, what's going on? Todd Shaw here with another episode of the Sawdust Dude. Today we're talking about log cabins, one of my favorite projects. About 6 months or 8 months out the year, I'm working on log cabins, and we're here in Southwest Virginia, beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, and we got a real project here. Awesome home. I call it tobacco barn style log cabins. Kind of small, but just got a lot of character. This one's kind of been through the ringer a little bit, but let's talk about log home maintenance. And the first thing is you always want to keep your cabin washed and keep the dust off of it. And here's a great example of how the shape of the log, the radius of the log, the top of it, from really about half of it up, you see how dirty it is. I can take my finger and just wipe that off like that. And that's one of the things, obviously this has been neglected. This is a project home, a little restoration that's taking place. And so we're actually doing something out the norm. We're caulking the cabin first and then gonna come back and wash it just because it's leaking so bad. But that's one of the things that you always wanna keep an eye on is the dirt and dust will actually just kind of ruin the finish on your logs. And a product that I like to use is from perma-chink. It's called Log Wash. It's concentrate. It does a great job. Probably one of the best things that I've seen on the market to wash your log homes with. And just start at the bottom and just kind of take a power washer and wet it down, spray on the log wash. It works for you. And then lightly scrub it and then power wash it off. Obviously don't hold the wand real close. Hold the wand about 16, 18, 2 feet away from the log, because you don't want the pressure of the water cutting into the log like a CNC machine. So that's kind of what we do there. And this cabin will probably have to be washed twice, but about every year, make sure that your logs are washed real well. Okay, here we are on our project cabin again, and this cabin's got original logs on it. It's got log siding, it's got cedar shakes on it, and it's got T111 siding on it. So it's a hodgepodge of woodworking. But one of the things I want to talk to you about over here is a great example of how the sun plays havoc on logs. Now this is log siding. You just kind of get a feel. You can tell how it looks, and especially the way they nailed it. And of course we'll have to go in here and then fill all these nail holes. But here's how the sun has an impact. You notice I showed you earlier how the dust settled on the top. Well, over here on the east side of the cabin, it's probably about, I don't know, it's about noon right now, but over here, I shoot the top of the log and you can see it's almost 140 degrees. I move my temperature gauge down to the bottom of the log and it's 114 degrees. Come on up once again. So you can see there's about a 15, and we've even seen up to, depending on what time of year it is, summer or fall, or how the temperature can be a 30 to 40 degree difference. But that top, because of the radius, that sun's always beating down on the top of that log. So this is definitely a stain failure, and the dirt really contributed to that process of failure. Let's talk a little bit about caulking a cabin. Just don't grab any kind of caulk. You really need a type of caulk that's for the log home industry. I use a Big Stretch. Is a good caulk to use. And I also use an energy seal, and this is another perma-chink product. And so what you'll do here is we'll come in and just shoot a little caulk in there, wipe it down. You don't leave a lot of residue. Caulk around the windows. These are called butt joints. You'll want to fill that with caulk. There's also a product called backer rod. It's a closed cell foam you can stuff in there, and that way you're not shooting so much caulk in there. And also, if the caulk were to fail, that foam would stop it. Now, it is backer rod. It's just not any kind of foam or weather stripping, but it's a closed cell foam. That means it does not absorb water. So that's real important to use that specifically. Once again, don't use, you gotta use products that are made for log homes specifically. Now this log home had some special challenges, because you see these logs are pretty much like plumbed straight up and down. And so, but then we get to this log here, and it sticks way out. It's real proud. And so water would run down and then get up on this shelf and just kind of run back into the log. And you'll see some log cabins, they have like a strip that's called chinking in the log. And so it's actually a piece of foam that goes in there, and then you put like mortar over it, or a type of caulk, and that expands and contracts. So basically we had to do the same thing here, is actually take chinking and build out and put a slope, and that way when water ran down here, it wasn't sitting on top of the log, that it would actually shed it back down. These logs were so bad, we just really had to take chinking and just kind of work it in there. Once again, this is not something that you would do. This is a unique situation. These logs are extremely bad, and so we just had to kind of move in a different direction. The solid color stain will just really kind of hide all of this, and so that's the beauty of using a solid color stain if you can't afford to have your home with the media blasting. Okay, I told you we had all kind of wood products, and you'll see this a lot on log cabins. Cedar shakes or cedar siding. These are shakes, and so these are kind of like they used to use for shingles years ago, but they've got them on the side of the house here, and they're pretty loose like this one here. And so we just take a pneumatic staple gun and just kind of go through, and we want to just kind of pop it in place, and then we'll go back and caulk those little spots, because on this cabin we are using a solid color stain on here just because it's so far gone. You know, sometimes if your stain fails and the cabin's neglected to such a point, we've had guys come in to do media blasting, and they use corn cobs or walnut, and they'll strip it all off, but that is kind of expensive. So this homeowner decided, just because of budget, that he just needed to do a solid color stain. So we'll go in with a solid color stain, and it still shows the character of the wood, but it's probably the best application for this. Okay, well, you look at some of your cabins. I got a friend here, this is Milo, and I'm looking at the cabin right here, and it's got chewed marks on it right here. In certain places in the country, this can be caused by several different things. Porcupines love chewing on cabins, squirrels, groundhogs, different things like this. But just kind of looking where this is, I think Milo is to blame for this one. Another thing, or something else that wants to attack your cabin, or that loves it more than you do, are insects. And that's one of the things here in Southwest Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains. We really have just kind of two predators when it comes to log cabins. Number one is the wood-boring beetle, or the carpenter bee. And about April or May, they start doing their little thing, hooking up and finding a mate, and the next thing you know, they're boring holes all in your log cabin. Seems like it, especially on beams that run across that are horizontal, or fascia boards are in the soffit of the cabin. And so they bore about a 1/4 inch hole inside your wood, and then they go in and lay their larvae, and then in about August the juvenile hatches out. Now, one of the things that you have to really watch out for, if those carpenter bees are in there and the larvae, about July or so, the woodpeckers start coming out, and they'll peck holes all in your cabin trying to eat the larvae out. So the carpenter bees, you can use insecticides such as Bee Gone, bug juice, different things like that. They even make little mason jars with a block of wood that you hang up, and the bees kind of attack that and go inside that, and of course then you get them off your property that way. I had one lady who liked to use in the evenings, she'd mix her a little cocktail, and she had a badminton racket or a tennis racket, and she'd get out there and whack, whack, and start hitting the carpenter bees like that. So I guess, you know, if that works for you, you could do that as well. Another insect that we have is called the powder post beetle. And these guys will attack your logs, and they make little small holes like this. And then they go inside, and for years you don't know that they're there, and they just burrow inside. It's the powder post beetle. Here's a picture of one now. You can kind of see what it looks like. But on the inside of logs, and the reason they call them powder post beetle is because they turn your log into powder. And that's something you always want to be on the lookout for, are those little holes in your cabin. Here's a log we've got to replace up here, and that's what the powder post beetle does on the inside. Outside, the log looks great, but when you tap on it, you can feel how hollow it is. And then we've got to reskin that. And I'll shoot another video about how you reskin a log. Here's some on the cabin that I did last year. It was actually a year ago this week, and these are just skins that we just put back up. Hey, another thing to look at when you're working up on the soffit and in these little corners and spots like that, and even up on the ridge up there on the gable end of your roof, you got to watch out for bats. Bats love log cabins for some reason, I don't know. And before you start to like killing bats and all that other stuff, you have to understand some of them, like the brown bat, are federally protected species. So might have to get a critter dude out there to get your bats. So you can only remove them certain times of the years, and so there's some laws with that. So if you run into a bat encounter, and you can, if you hear them up in the corners up here, or look down around here on these log ends, you'll see guano or bat droppings, and that's a sign you got bats in your cabin. All right, thanks for joining us on another episode of the Sawdust Dude. Ton Shaw with Milo the dog, yeah. Hey, no sugar, please. It's not that kind of film. Hey, keep your home washed real well, keep it caulked up real well, and make sure you spray for bugs, and then your log home will last a long, long time until Milo chews on it. Hey, thanks for watching the Sawdust Dude. I'll see you real soon.